Let me ask you something. Have you ever spent 20 minutes making the perfect cut, measured everything twice, checked your setup 3 times, turned on the saw with complete confidence, and then looked at the finished piece and thought,
what happened?
Because somehow the edge is rough, fibers are torn out, and the board looks worse than before you started.
What's interesting is that many people immediately blame the tool. Maybe the blade is dull, maybe the saw isn't powerful enough, maybe the wood is poor quality. And sometimes those things are true. But very often, the real culprit is something much simpler.
Wood grain, the thing most beginners notice, but rarely understand.
Exactly. And if you understand grain direction, you'll make cleaner cuts, smoother surfaces, stronger projects, and better decisions throughout the entire woodworking process.
So today we're talking about why wood grain matters. Not just what it is, but how it affects nearly everything you do in woodworking.
Because once you understand grain, wood starts making a lot more sense.
Welcome to ToolTalk Pro, the channel where we help you understand not just how tools work, but how materials work too.
Because sometimes becoming a better woodworker isn't about buying a better tool. It's about understanding the material sitting right in front of you.
And wood has a lot more going on than most people realize. Let's get into it. Let's start with the basics. When people say wood grain, what are they actually talking about? Because I think most people recognize grain when they see it. They just don't know what it means.
That's true. The easiest way to understand grain is to remember that wood was once a living tree. Trees don't grow as solid blocks. They grow through countless fibers that transport water and nutrients throughout the tree. Those fibers generally run in the same direction as the tree's growth. When the tree is cut into lumber, those fibers remain inside the wood. And what we see as grain patterns are often visual clues showing us how those fibers are arranged.
So grain isn't just a pattern, it's actually part of the wood structure.
Exactly. It's one of the most important characteristics of the material. Those fibers influence how wood cuts, how it sands, how it breaks, how it moves, and even how it responds to changes in humidity.
Which means those little lines on the board are basically giving us instructions.
In a way, yes. The grain is constantly telling you how the wood wants to behave. The challenge is learning how to read it.
One thing I find fascinating is how different wood is compared to materials like metal or plastic, because a lot of beginners approach wood as if it's just another material.
And that's usually where problems begin. Wood isn't uniform. Metal tends to behave similarly no matter which direction you're working. Plastic is relatively predictable. Wood is different because it has a natural internal structure.
Almost like it has a personality.
Sometimes a very stubborn personality. Wood can expand, contract, split, twist, cup, warp, and react differently depending on how its grain is oriented. That's why experienced woodworkers spend time studying a board before they ever make a cut.
Which is something beginners rarely do. Most people see wood, professionals see information.
Exactly.
Let's talk about one of the first places grain direction becomes obvious, cutting.
This is where grain can make a dramatic difference. Imagine the wood fibers as bundles of tiny straws. If your blade cuts in a direction that supports those fibers, the cut tends to be cleaner. If the blade starts lifting and tearing the fibers before cutting them, the result can be much rougher.
Kind of like brushing a dog's fur. One direction feels smooth, the other direction feels like the dog is questioning your life choices.
That's actually not a bad analogy. Working with the grain generally produces cleaner results. Working against it often increases the chances of tear out.
And tear out is one of those things every woodworker remembers. Usually because it happens right before finishing a project.
Exactly. And that's when people suddenly realize grain direction matters a lot more than they thought.
Let's dig into that because tear out is a term beginners hear constantly. What actually causes it?
Tear out happens when wood fibers are pulled out of the surface rather than cut cleanly. Instead of slicing through the fibers, the cutting edge lifts and breaks them. The result is a rough, splintered surface.
Which is frustrating because the cut often looks great right up until the damage appears.
Exactly. And tear out can happen with hand planes, routers, jointers, table saws, and many other tools. The grain direction often determines whether the cut is smooth or problematic.
So sometimes the issue isn't the tool, it's the direction you're using it.
Very often, yes.
Now let's move to sanding, because this is another area where grain direction quietly affects everything.
Absolutely. Most people focus on sandpaper grit, and that's important. But sanding direction matters too. When you sand with the grain, any scratches that remain tend to blend naturally into the wood pattern. When you sand across the grain, those scratches become much more visible.
Especially after applying finish.
Exactly. A finish often acts like a spotlight. It highlights details that were difficult to see beforehand. That's why a surface that looks perfectly smooth before finishing can suddenly reveal sanding mistakes.
Woodworking's version of seeing yourself in a security camera.
Not always flattering.
Something that surprises many beginners is how much grain direction affects strength.
It's a huge factor. Wood is significantly stronger along the grain than across it. Think about splitting firewood. It's relatively easy to split wood along the grain. Splitting across the grain is much harder.
Because you're either separating the fibers or trying to break them.
Exactly, and furniture makers use this knowledge constantly. The direction of grain can determine whether a part remains strong for years or eventually fails.
So grain isn't just about appearance, it's engineering.
Very much so.
Let's talk about something that confuses almost every beginner at some point. Wood movement.
One of woodworking's most important concepts. Wood is hygroscopic. That means it absorbs and releases moisture from the environment. As humidity changes, wood changes size.
Even after it's been cut into a board?
Even decades later. Wood never completely stops responding to its environment.
Which honestly sounds unfair. You finish a project and the wood is still making decisions.
That's one way to put it. And grain direction affects how that movement occurs. Wood tends to move far more across the grain than along it. That's why experienced woodworkers account for seasonal expansion and contraction when designing furniture.
And ignoring that can cause cracking, warping, or joints coming apart.
Exactly.
So how do experienced woodworkers actually read grain?
They look at the flow of the grain lines. They examine the board from multiple angles. They pay attention to curves, cathedral patterns, and changes in fiber direction. Over time, they learn to predict how a board will behave.
Almost like reading a map before taking a trip.
That's a great comparison, because once you understand the map, you can make smarter decisions before problems occur.
Let's finish with some common mistakes. What's the biggest one?
Ignoring grain direction completely. Many beginners focus entirely on measurements and tool settings. Those are important, but they forget to look at the wood itself.
Anything else?
Sanding across the grain, forcing cuts without considering fiber direction, ignoring wood movement, and choosing board orientation based only on appearance instead of strength.
So the grain isn't decoration.
No, it's information. And learning to use that information is one of the biggest steps toward becoming a better woodworker.
At the end of the day, understanding wood grain won't magically make you a master woodworker.
But it will help you make cleaner cuts, smoother surfaces, stronger projects, and better decisions.
Because once you understand how wood wants to behave, you're no longer fighting the material.
You're working with it. And that's where woodworking starts becoming both easier and more enjoyable.
If you found this helpful, subscribe to ToolTalk Pro for more woodworking guides, tool breakdowns, workshop tips, and hands-on learning.
And we'll see you in the next one.